Yo, what is up you guys? It's Dominator here, and in this video I will be giving an in-depth guide on shiny hunting in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. A few months ago, I made an ultimate shiny hunting guide for every Pokemon game that is capable of connecting to Pokemon Home, from Pokemon Red and Blue all the way to Pokemon Legends Arceus. You can check out that video by clicking the card on screen now. However, I intentionally excluded Scarlet and Violet from that video, as at the time of making that video, Scarlet and Violet had not been released, and I didn't want to rush to include those games to avoid potentially spreading misinformation just for the sake of getting the info out as quickly as possible. Now I feel enough time has passed for me to properly make a guide for these games. Keep in mind that with Pokemon games like these, new strategies and methods for shiny hunting can be discovered much later as time passes. So if there's something that is not included in this video, please be sure to let me know in the comments. Along with that, this video is before the DLC for Scarlet and Violet has been released, so if you're watching this video in the future, keep in mind that I will not be including any methods from the DLC, as we do not know anything about that at this time. I also want to briefly go over some shiny locked Pokemon in this game. Shiny locked Pokemon are Pokemon that can never be shiny no matter how many times you encounter them. These Pokemon are your starter Pokemon at the beginning of the game, all of the Titan Pokemon, all of the Gimmighoul, all of the legendaries, and the Sunflora at Artisan that you can battle while doing the gym test. This list of shiny locked Pokemon can be found on Cerebi. I'll leave the link to the page in the description of this video. There are also a handful of fixed encounters that are shiny locked across the Paldea region, but these are mostly ones that could result in uncatchable shinies if you were to actually get them to be shiny. Speaking of uncatchable shinies, I will not be discussing how to hunt certain uncatchable shinies, mainly because these are Pokemon that would be pretty difficult to hunt anyway, and as the name implies, you wouldn't even be able to catch them. With all that being said, if you made it this far in the video, please consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And doing those two things lets me know that you enjoyed the video or at least got some useful info from it. I also plan to make ultimate shiny hunting guides for some more obscure shiny hunting methods, along with the methods that are potentially introduced in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, along with any other future Pokemon games. So you're not going to want to miss those when they come out. Alright, let's get into this. To start, I'm going to go over the basics, random encounters and soft resets. As shiny Pokemon appear in the overworld now, random encounters and soft resets work a bit different than from past games. For random encounters, it's very simple. Just run around or ride around on Koraidon or Miraidon and Pokemon will spawn in. When you go far enough away from these Pokemon, they will despawn, which will allow new Pokemon to spawn. You need to pay attention though, as shinies do not sparkle until you encounter them. So there's no audio cue or visual indicator that a shiny has spawned in outside of it simply being a different color than normal. I would recommend checking out what the shiny looks like before hunting it if you're worried about missing it. Another strategy for shiny hunting via random encounters is to use the Let's Go feature to have your Pokemon auto-battle the wild Pokemon. If you attempt to auto-battle a shiny, your Pokemon will refuse to attack it and display this water drop icon next to its sprite. This can be very useful for trying to find subtle shinies or small Pokemon, along with Ditto and Zorua or Zoroark. Ditto and the Zorua line are unique encounters in Scarlet and Violet as they are disguised as normal Pokemon. If a shiny one appears, it'll still show up as a non-shiny disguised Pokemon. So in order to check if they are shiny, you can lock onto them using ZL to see what the Pokemon actually is, and then if they are shiny, they will sparkle upon encountering them like normal. Or if you attempt to auto-battle them, your Pokemon will still refuse to attack them like normal. One more thing about random encounters are the mass outbreaks, but I will cover them later as we discuss how to increase your shiny odds. Next up are soft resets. Because shinies show up in the overworld in these games, and most Pokemon you would think would be perfect for soft resets are actually shiny locked, soft resets are rather limited. But there are two types of Pokemon you can soft reset for: Wild Terra Pokemon and Fixed Spawns. Wild Terra Pokemon are the obvious glowing Terra Pokemon you can find across the Paldea region. Fixed Spawns are specific Pokemon that are always set to appear at a specific location. I also like to call these Strong Spawns, as in Sword and Shield, there are a very similar type of encounter called Wanderers that many people dubbed as Strong Spawns. Since these Pokemon in Scarlet and Violet are so similar, I've just been calling them the same thing. Both these Terra Pokemon and Strong Spawns, despite showing up similarly to regular wild Pokemon, actually don't despawn and respawn when you get too far away and then close to them again. They will remain exactly the same and will never be shiny if you do this. Instead, you will need to do this special trick to be able to soft reset hunt for them. What you need to do is simply catch or KO the Pokemon you want to hunt for, save your game, then close your game out and change your date to 1 day forward. After this, when you load your game back up, the Pokemon you're hunting for will spawn in a brand new version of it every time because the game thinks it's a new day. From here, you don't need to mess with your time anymore and just keep soft resetting your game until the Pokemon spawns in as a shiny. I also want to point out with these wild Terra Pokemon, they're a bit buggy, so sometimes when you reset your game to hunt them, they just don't show up. When I was resetting for my Terra Pokemon, I found if it didn't actually show up, I would just reset again, and most of the time it would just show right back up again the next reset, so keep that in mind. It is also worth noting that for wild Terra Pokemon, you can save right next to where you caught or KO'd them, and they will always spawn after waiting a few seconds. With strong spawns, you will need to be a little bit of a distance away from where they spawn before you save your game, because if you reload your game right next to where they spawn in, they just won't spawn until you get far enough away. Other than that, these two types of hunts work pretty much the same. Also note that these hunts are not affected by Shiny Charm and will always be the full 1 in 4096 Shiny rate. I also want to give a huge shout out to Absolblog's Pokemon, as I essentially learned how to do these reset hunts from his Pokemon Violet Badge Quest video. I would highly recommend checking that video out, as he does many different methods for hunting his shiny Pokemon on his playthrough and is overall very entertaining to watch. I'll leave a card for it on screen now. The next type of shiny hunt I want to go over is shiny Terra raid hunting. Like the wild Terra Pokemon and strong spawns, these Terra raids are not affected by Shiny Charm and will always be the full odds rate. However, instead of 1 in 4096 being the full odds rate, these actually have a slightly lower shiny rate at roughly a 1 in 4103.5 shiny rate, which is honestly such a small difference that it's pretty much the same. The best way I can think to shiny hunt these raids is to simply go to every raid you see on your map. After you enter a raid and see if it isn't shiny, simply give up on the raid and go to the next one. Repeat this process until you've checked every raid that's available on the map, then go to your Switch settings and hit the OK button on your clock. This will re-roll your raids and give you a fresh set to check again. Then just check all the raids again and repeat until you get a shiny raid boss. Be aware that shiny Terra raid bosses do not sparkle at all, so you will want to know what color the Pokemon looks like as a shiny to make sure. On top of this, the terastallization can make the colors look a bit off, so you'll want to look closely at Pokemon that have more subtle shinies. Overall, these Terra raids are pretty difficult to hunt, but who knows? If you do enough of them trying to go after Herba Mystica or other valuable items, you might just stumble upon one. We talked about some of the basic ways to shiny hunt in these games, now it's time to talk about the ways you can increase your shiny chances. The way you can permanently increase your shiny rates in these games, like most other Pokemon games, is by getting the Shiny Charm. You get this by registering every Pokemon in the Paldea Pokedex, then talking to Jacques in the Biology Lab. This will give every Pokemon 2 extra chances to be shiny, excluding raids, Terra Pokemon, and strong spawns, resulting in a 1 in 1365 shiny chance. Next, I will briefly cover Masuda method breeding in these games. I talked a bit more about this method in my previous shiny hunting guide video, so I don't want to spend too long on this method, as it works pretty much the same as every other game where this method is present. Essentially, you just breed 2 Pokemon together that are caught in different language games. For example, breeding an English Fuecoco with a Japanese Ditto will give the offspring a higher chance to be shiny. The odds are 1 in 683 or 1 in 512 if you have the Shiny Charm. The main difference in these games is that there are no daycares. Instead, you breed by having 2 compatible Pokemon in your party and waiting at a picnic for an egg to show up in your basket. If you make a sandwich that gives the egg power meal power, it'll give you a higher rate at which eggs appear in your basket. Make sure you're periodically grabbing eggs out of your basket, as the basket can only hold 10 at a time. Once you think you have enough eggs, you can hatch them like normal by running around with them in your party. If you have a Pokemon with either the ability Magma Armor, Flame Body, or Steam Engine, your eggs will hatch faster. The egg power meal power will also reduce the amount you need to walk to hatch eggs. If you want to full odds shiny hunt eggs, all you will need to do is make sure the Pokemon you're breeding aren't from different language games. One disclaimer on breeding for shinies in this game is that it really isn't worth doing. Unless you're specifically trying to get a shiny that has to be bred to be obtained in this game, like a starter, or you want your shiny to specifically have a 0 IV in a certain stat, there really isn't a reason to breed. This is because breeding is much slower and clunkier in this game, and much more boring in this game, in my opinion. In past games, you would need to ride around on either a bike or a Pokemon, and you would be able to gather an egg like every 20 seconds or so. This game, you essentially have to just wait and do nothing at your picnic while occasionally picking up an egg from the basket, and essentially need to use the egg power meal power to make it even somewhat comparable to the rate you receive eggs in past games. Not only this, but you cannot just hatch 5 eggs at once, as you need to walk a bit of distance between egg hatches even if you started walking them all at the same time. This paired with the absolutely busted encounter rates that wild Pokemon have, along with comparable shiny rates while using sparkling power, breeding for shinies is nearly obsolete in this game. The next way I want to cover to increase your shiny chance is by using the Sparkling Power Meal Power. In order to get this, you will need 2 Herba Mystica when making a sandwich. In order to get these Herba Mystica, you have a small chance to receive them as drops from level 5 or 6 Terra raids. There is a specific set of Pokemon that will give you a much higher chance of dropping Herba Mystica from these raids. Shout out to Pokemon Cast for making this chart. If you see one of these Pokemon in a level 5 or level 6 Terra raid, I would recommend making a Raid Power level 2 sandwich of the Terra type that the boss is to try and maximize your Herba Mystica drops. My strategy for farming Herba Mystica is to really only look for level 6 raids, as there's no way to determine what level a raid is from 3 to 5, but level 6 raids have a black coloration to them. In order to unlock level 6 raids, you need to beat the entire game. After rematching every gym leader and battling in the tournament, you will get a call from Jacques asking you to investigate the Terra raids. You will then need to battle a few of the level 5 Terra raids. Once you defeat enough, you will get another call from Jacques warning you about more powerful raids. This will allow level 6 raids to show up. I would go to the level 6 raid on the map and check what it was. If it was a Pokemon and Terra type I knew I could beat, I would defeat it. Then I would go to my Switch settings and hit the OK button in the time settings. This will reroll the raids and give me another level 6 raid to battle. If it's a raid I couldn't beat, I would simply reroll the raids again and keep looking for ones I knew I could beat. I would just repeat this process until I got plenty of Herba Mystica to make Sparkling Power sandwiches. I must warn you that if you are just starting out battling these level 6 raids, it will be a lengthy process. But the more raids you defeat, the more items you will accumulate that you can use to train more and more Pokemon in order to take on even more raids, until you can defeat much more of them in a shorter period of time. So just stick with it and eventually it will become easier. There's plenty of info online to build certain Pokemon that are good at taking down raids, but some of the ones I like to use are Azumarill, Skeledirge, Koraidon, and Scizor. These Pokemon can cover a lot of different Terra types, and with proper EV training, abilities, and movesets can be very useful. Also note if you're playing on Violet version, Iron Hands and Miraidon are also great options to use as well. Now that you got the Herba Mystica, all that's left to do is make the correct sandwiches. There's a bunch of online recipes you can use, but there is a specific set of recipes I personally use that give you multiple options depending on what Herba Mystica you have access to or how many ingredients you want to use in the sandwich overall. I'll leave this set of recipes in the description of the video. These recipes will give you a sandwich that grants Sparkling Power 3, Tidal Power 3, and Encounter Power 3 for whatever type you are trying to hunt. Tidal Power 3 gives you 3 additional chances that the Pokemon that spawn in will have marks. Encounter Power 3 will allow nearly all Pokemon that spawn in to be the type the meal power is affecting, assuming the Pokemon of that type is capable of spawning in the area. And Sparkling Power 3 gives 3 additional chances for the affected type of Pokemon to be shiny. This results in a 1 in 1024 shiny rate or a 1 in 683 shiny rate if you have the shiny charm. From here, you essentially just hunt normal random encounters, but with a much higher chance to find a shiny. Note if you want a full odds hunt but use Encounter Power 3, there are recipes you can use that only require 1 Herba Mystica and give Encounter Power 3 and Tidal Power 3 without receiving Sparkling Power 3. Shout out to Larvae Games for making this chart on these recipes. The last method to raise your shiny chance in these games is to use Mass Outbreaks. Mass Outbreaks are areas on your map highlighted by a Pokemon sprite. These Pokemon will spawn in great numbers in that area. You can reroll the outbreaks on the map the same way you reroll the raids, just hit the OK button on your Switch's clock settings. To get a higher shiny rate for them, all you need to do is KO 30 or 60 of the Pokemon in the outbreak. You can do this by either full battling them or by using the Let's Go mode, which is the much more efficient way to do it. When you KO 30 of the Pokemon in the outbreak Pokemon will then get an additional shiny chance. This will result in a 1 in 2048 shiny rate or a 1 in 1024 shiny rate if you have the shiny charm. Once you KO 60 Pokemon in the outbreak, each Pokemon will receive another additional shiny chance. This results in a 1 in 1365 shiny rate or a 1 in 819 shiny rate if you have the shiny charm. Along with this, if you make a Sparkling Power 3 sandwich, the shiny chances will stack and can give you up to a 1 in 683 shiny rate for the outbreak Pokemon or a 1 in 512 shiny rate if you have the shiny charm. From here, you simply run in and out of the outbreak to refresh the spawns very quickly. A lot of people like to use the picnic reset method where you start a picnic which will delete all of the Pokemon around you, then pack up the picnic to allow more Pokemon to spawn in. But I have tried this picnic reset method multiple times, and for me, it just doesn't seem nearly as efficient as just running in and out of the outbreak. But I'd recommend trying both methods and see which one you like to do more. Do note that you will not want to KO too many more Pokemon than the 60, as if you KO too many, the outbreak will end. Along with this, the KO bonuses only apply to that specific outbreak Outbreak. So if you want to hunt at another Outbreak or a different Outbreak of the same species of Pokemon, you will need to KO the 60 Pokemon again to get the max shiny rates. Additionally, if you want to full odds hunt these Outbreaks, all you need to do is just not KO the Pokemon, as the Pokemon in the Outbreak will remain full odds until at least 30 of them are KO'd. One more thing to point out about these Outbreaks is that there is currently a bug in the game where if you see an Outbreak of a Pokemon with multiple forms, the Outbreak will only contain the form that is listed first in the Pokedex, regardless of what the form the Outbreak says it is. For example, if you wanted to hunt at a Tatsugiri Outbreak, the only one that can appear in an Outbreak is the Curly form. Even if the Outbreak says it's featuring a Droopy or a Stretchy form, it will only ever be the Curly form. Hopefully this bug gets fixed in a future update. Well, that's pretty much it. Before I go, I want to give a huge shout out to Anubis. They made this chart going over all the shiny rates in Scarlet and Violet, and they are where I got most of my info from in regards to shiny rates. I'd highly recommend following them on Twitter, as they are usually the first source to find out what the shiny rates are when a new game comes out. They also cover a lot of other mechanics, bugs, and shiny locks that are in these games to help you prepare for certain hunts. I will link their tweet that showcases this chart in the description of this video. And that's it. This has been my ultimate shiny hunting guide for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. If this video helped you out in any way, let me know by leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And comment below what's your favorite shiny you found in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, ring those notification bells, all that good stuff. Be sure to join the domiNATION, and I will see you in the next video.